Finding happiness in the Philippines is something that a lot of people try to do, but I think at first you need to realize and look at what is wrong with your life in the first place. Because moving to another country does not mean that you're going to be happier than you are currently, unless it's to do with things like the area you live in. Maybe everybody's working during the day, and you get into an age where most of your friends have moved away or died. But beyond that, if it's something emotional or there is something that you're unhappy with your own life that is not related to um, a change of environment, uh, you're going to find that you're not going to be any happier. I had when I moved out to the Philippines myself in 2007, I was already happy. I had a good job. I was already on a good career path, and although my home life wasn't great, it wasn't a disaster. Moving abroad, what the main reasons I did that was just that I met my partner, April, and basically it was the only way to make the relationship work at that time. Now, me moving to the Philippines did not make the UK a bad place to be. Financially, the Philippines was a lot better because at that time the exchange rate was nearly 100 pesos to a pound, where currently it's about the 70 mark, 70, 73, and it's been as low as 60 something. But from my own type of work, financially it made more sense because there is certain bands you have in the tax system where I actually benefited by taking several months off a year and living out in the Philippines. Also, a lot of the costs associated as being a couple, um, for me, we're better off in the Philippines because our cost of our accommodation is significantly less, but also the running costs. Back in 2007, up until the last couple of years. Um, what would that mean if my wife and kids were in the UK? Well, the fact is, the cost of living for things like rent is significantly higher. But schooling is part of the tax system, but I would actually be paying more tax by living in the UK as well. So the differences are minimal. But when you're a couple with no children in the Philippines, your cost of living is significantly less. It's a bit like a single man or a single woman working in the UK. They're paying a lot of tax for services they don't use. For example, childcare and schooling and stuff. You're paying for other people's children out of your tax money. Um, and it's these sort of things you've got to weigh up when thinking, why would I be happier in the Philippines? For me, the big difference between UK and Philippines is my wife. The location is pretty irrelevant if you're not happy as a couple. Or the fact is, I'm very happy with my wife and very content. But the Philippines itself wouldn't actually be relative to that happiness being achieved by being in the Philippines. The happiness comes from my wife and the lifestyle and choices we make. But the Philippines itself, it's not gonna make that much difference. Um, Now, if you're a single guy that was thinking, I'll move to the Philippines, I'm not happy with the way things are, come out of a bad relationship, blah, 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 then the first thing I would say is have a look at yourself first. If you just come out of a relationship, why did it fail? Where were the problems? Because one of the problems I find that a lot of the guys will go to the Philippines with excess baggage, and sometimes, they'll blame the ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, a lot of these relationships had problems in them that are between the two parties. And if you're not acknowledging that there were some problems, when you get to the Philippines, you're going to start again and make another problem. You find a new partner and you're still going through the same problems you were having with your ex-partner, and that will continue into the new relationship. You want to get away from that stuff, but part of that is actually looking at yourself and deciding what is it that's going to change when you go to the Philippines. Why do you think that it's going to make such a big change to your life that you're going to be happier? Because short term, it might do. But realistically, a lot of people in the Philippines, foreigners, I have never seen anybody publish the statistics, but there's a lot of suicides. There's a lot of problems in relationships, like relationships that only last months, weeks, years, a few years. And a lot of it is down to problems that traveled with them. That's why to find happiness in the Philippines, you really need to look into yourself first and see what you can change, or what the Philippines is going to bring to your table and what you'll bring to it to make everything work. If you don't do that, I don't think you're going to be as happy as you could be. The Philippines has some good weather, cheap rent, but it's on the rise. Electric's on the rise, and the cost of living. I know some of my friends are actually finding it cheaper in the US these days. I wouldn't say it's cheaper in the UK. It's hard to compete. The UK is notoriously expensive, but depending where you relocate, you might find it's easier to relocate within the US and get a better life, more for your money, without actually even leaving the country. But I also know I'm not stupid. A lot of you guys want to come out here and meet good women. But at the same time, if you're looking for a new partner in your life, you really need to analyze what was wrong with your partner previously, what was wrong with what you did in the relationship, and how can you make that better. Do these things first before you hop on a plane. Also visit the Philippines a few times before you decide to sell everything and move over, because it's not a holiday every day. It's a bit like Vegas, for example. Vegas is nice to visit for a week or two, but it's not a place I would want to live. Well, I don't know about you, but the fact is, that's the sort of things you've got to look at. Is when you visit these places, initially you're on holiday mode. What's it going to be like long term? I found happiness in the Philippines, though. I got a beautiful wife, some wonderful kids, and the only downside of the Philippines, I can say, is probably the issues of corruption and a lot of petty stuff. You get around the petty stuff. You just get used to it and learn to ignore it. But it's always going to be there. Like people revving motorbikes and the constant knowing that if you go outside, it's always dusty. Those sort of things are small irritants, but you can get used to it. But that's what I'm saying. Could I take my wife and kids out of the Philippines? Would that make me any happier or not? Would the Philippines offer something that I couldn't do in the UK? The answer is, I think my wife and kids may actually be better in the UK. The Philippines offers some great stuff like family connections, where you still have the family unit functioning with grandparents and other members of family, which also means that the bonds between your children and the grandparents are very strong, as well as yourselves. So from that perspective, yes, I would say the Philippines has got that bond, which is very hard to maintain in the UK because of the way everybody works here in the UK. Everyone seems to be constantly working just to break even. They're not relaxing as much. Where I found in the Philippines, everybody's got time for somebody else. There's always time to take time, which is one of the things that can bring in with making you happy while living in the Philippines. People have time for you, which is one of the things I'm saying that you need to analyze. If you live in a community where everybody's at work all day and you've got nobody to see, then the Philippines has the aspect of people do have time for you. I would like to hear some feedback on this, because there's different age groups, so you have different views. Personally, I think the Philippines, the main thing it's got is good weather, and for a lot of guys, wonderful women. You know, they want to find a partner. But with that, I still think that people need to analyze their own lives before stepping forward and looking for somebody else in their life. Let me know what you think.